Well, g'day sports fans, welcome into The Roar, Southland Sporting Podcast. Nick Jeffrey together with Active Southland's Nathan Burden and the Southland Tribune's Logan Savoury. How are we going, gents?
Very good, thank you, Nick.
Good, mate. Southland Anniversary Day.
Yes, as we record this, glorious Southland Day actually, so
Paradise out there.
bathed in sunshine. How was Easter's? How was what sport did we consume over the weekend?
A bit of basketball to kick off the NBL season.
Attaboy. Yeah,
bit of NRL, bit of everything actually. I'm a channel flicker.
good work. She was all go actually for a couple of nights there actually, and of course the Sharks did begin their NBL campaign up in Dunedin, and that was one that got away. I think it's fair to say. You actually had a hard time watching.
That was
right?
a tough watch, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As parochial as we want to be, it was a hard game to watch. But
got themselves in position, leading by 5 with about 90 seconds to play. Just needed one play down the stretch to kind of close that game out and take the opening round win over the Otago Nuggets. Couldn't quite get it done. Went to overtime and then got, unfortunately, well beaten in overtime to ultimately lose the game. So yeah, that was disappointing. Mind you, as I always say, the good news is we get another go on Wednesday.
That's right. Yeah. I was going to say the boys love it overtime, but probably not. But what are the 5 games this season? If we include the pre-season as well, 3 of them have gone into overtime. Is that right?
It's a wee bit mad. There's 2 of the pre-season games on the road. That's quite good because you get to play more basketball in the pre-season to get things together. Yeah,
I'd love to see a stat on home team wins in overtime. I reckon it's almost, as soon as that game went to overtime, I'm like, well, Nuggets win, basically. It's like, it just feels like it's a homer, you know.
Yeah, and it's always the team that actually closes the last 60 seconds tends to take that momentum into overtime as much as anything. So, yeah, look, forward steps, I think, no question about that from a Sharks point of view, from a pre-season perspective. They got the Nuggets reasonably short-handed, though, you know, so they didn't have Ty Webster in one of their imports. So, yeah, you would have liked to have grabbed that one. They get the Jets on Wednesday night, so that's the home opener at ILT Stadium, Southland, and then hit the road to head to Hawke's Bay on the weekend to take on the Hawks, who were pretty well beaten in the opening round. So it's not a bad draw to start with. But without putting too fine a point on it, because we are in the first week of a 20-game season, the reality is you'd want to sneak a couple of wins if you could out of these next couple of games to get the season started. So, yeah, fingers crossed they can do the business on their home court.
Be great to see a big crowd down there at ILT Stadium, Southland on Wednesday night and roar them home.
It's always a good night out.
Absolutely. So we'll get into that. Club footy, of course, kicked off before the Easter weekend as well too. You went out and braved the elements, did you see?
Yeah, I got absolutely
hailed on.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I was down at Miller Street watching the Mara Star game.
Yeah.
It was at 14-6 at half time, and I thought this was going to be quite tight, but some Star piled on the points in the second half. Won quite comfortably. And I thought, Woodlands knocked over Blues. What was that, 61-17?
Yeah, came out and just smacked them in the mouth, I think, was kind of the way that one played. And then probably the game of the round was up at the Gore Showgrounds, right, and Pirates Old Boys outlasting the Barbars.
Yeah, and I think by all accounts, Barbarians lost. So that was 83rd minute penalty to Nakora Bellick, the first 5. Or he was actually playing fullback, I think. But he kicked a late penalty. But by all accounts, I don't think the Barbarians will be too, upset with the result, but too concerned because, they had a couple of players missing and by all accounts, really took it to Pirates Old Boys and Morgie Mitchell starting at tight head of prop has been a huge off-season acquisition for those guys, and they're going to take some beating, particularly out at Gore.
Now we've got Sports Awards nominations as well for the ILT Southland Sports Awards, Nathan, to put your Active Southland hat on. They'll be flowing in, no doubt. Sports are very good at really picking these up and running with it, aren't they?
Definitely proactive in that regard, Nick. So looking forward to those nominations coming in for ILT Southland Sports Awards. They're closing on April 17, but we'll take them well before April 17 if they happen to come in that way. I
suspect you'll get the traditional April 17 last minute rush in terms of how they go, and I say that from personal opinion. Now you've got a golfing fixture on the radar as well.
ILT Gold Cup coming up this weekend, so that's one of the more prestigious tournaments tournaments in Southland golf, so I understand.
You're saying that because you've won it before, right?
Yeah, well, it was prestigious before the Bird and Houghton. That was in the COVID years though, so I'm not sure if anyone actually noticed that one. But yeah, we do have the names on the trophy, but it's a good one to get. Always a great list of prizes, and the team at the club do a great job of putting that tournament together. So I think it's going to be quite a big field again this year.
Nice, mate. And also, we'll make mention of a really good event coming up on Saturday night, which I'm lucky to have a small part to play in, and that's a fundraiser for the Southland Boys High School First 15 that are getting themselves set this month, we can say now, to head off to the World Championships in Japan. So it's a fundraising night for them, and they've got a star-studded lineup of old boys that are actually turning up. So we're looking forward to having chats up on stage. Mills Moliaina, Ethan de Groot, Jack Taylor, Sean Withy, all coming home, we could say. Of course, it's a week off for the Highlanders, which they probably need a little bit to reset their campaign, don't they? And that should be a good night on Saturday night.
It's a great lineup. There'll be some good tales to hear. I would have thought.
We might see if we can feature a few on the podcast next week as well too. So yeah, that's a bit of a whistle-stop trip. We're not going to mess around because we've got a really interesting interview coming up with our special guest. And this is Rugby Southland's Academy manager, Scott Eade, who's going to be with us. And Sav, there's a really interesting story to dig into here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's some really good work being done around some of the, I guess, sort of that under 20, under 19 level, some of the guys coming through. And you mentioned the Southland Boys First 15, and some of those guys now sort of progressing into the next sort of level of their game. And Scott Eade's done a fantastic job around, I guess, building up that depth and younger players. So, really good to get some insight from him about how it's all come about.
So let's do that. Our special guest this week on The Raw, Scott Eade. Well, let's bring in our guest for episode 4 of The Raw. We've got Rugby Southland's Academy manager, Scott Eade, who is with us. Mate, probably our jumping off point is you're fresh back from Highlanders Under 20's duty. Tell us a little bit about, the role, I guess, that you filled there and how that came to be.
Yeah, been good to be back. Good to be back in my own bed, sleeping for a number of nights. I forgot what my house and maybe even Mrs. Looked like, to be fair. But it was
it's
awesome.
Good you put the house before the Mrs. as well, I noticed. Anyway,
well,
let's not call you on that.
She doesn't listen to this. No, I'm sure she will be. It was awesome time though. I guess it started probably middle of last year. Kane Jury, who's the TID manager at the Highlanders, just chatting away and around the possibility of being involved in the coaching group. I'd done a bit in the Highlanders Under 18 or schoolboy space, and so I jumped in there, and it probably started from about September last year, looking at players. And Will Henry is the head coach, so he works for Highlanders and Otago, done a lot of coaching, awesome man. So we sort of got connected. And then Dean Mohue, who's been part of the team for 3 or 4 years, pretty awesome coach up in Otago, and Regan Turo, who's been coaching at Otago Boys. So there was the 4 of us. So sort of got going from September, and then a lot of planning and a lot of Zooms and conversations. And then all of a sudden we got to February and O week, and we were into it. So it had a squad of about 50. I think we started 55 or so, and that whittled down to 36, and then that whittled down to 27. So a lot of conversations had in a very short time. But no, it was an awesome trip, and a lot of learning.
And quite an arduous playing schedule too, right? You know, you're into it, aren't you? You know, in terms of the playing schedule.
Yeah, the tournament itself is 3 games in a week, pretty much. They did extend this year. They put an extra day between the second and third games. New Zealand Rugby did, but some of the feedback from the Highlanders group the last 2 years have been they hadn't had enough pre-season games or games at a level. So I know last year they ended up playing a Kaikorai and Tyree Colts team, but this year we actually had a pretty awesome 2 pre-season hit-outs against the Southland 15 and Balclutha. So that was, for a lot of the boys, it was actually their first game playing men. And then we'll go back and review it and watch it. Actually had to remind ourselves a wee bit that for a lot of the under 19 boys, that was their first time playing men. So, which was awesome though, because it prepared them physically pretty well. And then played the Crusaders in Pleasant Point the week after, which obviously turned out to be they weren't a bad measuring stick because they ended up winning it. So and then we were into it. Played the Crusaders again, which was one of those things. But awesome tournament.
Is there much scouting out of new guys arriving at university for that team, or do you know who most of these guys are by that stage?
Well, there is a fair bit of watching first 15 rugby. To be fair, a lot of it. The core of the group is probably there, and then it's looking at who are the guys around the country who we know of that are going to come down to university, and then there's probably a wee bracket off the side of who are guys that we maybe don't, well, that we've seen play but we don't know are coming down, and there's always a couple. There was a couple come down this year and had a crack. I guess you got the under-19 stuff the year before, August, September, which gives you the core of the group. That, I guess, older year, and then you've got your schoolboys coming through. I think I was on a Zoom last week, New Zealand Rugby, they'd said it was the most ever under-19s they'd had playing at the tournament. I think there was 55 or something around that under-19s, which you think there's, out of the 5 teams plus the Barbars, not including Moana and Fiji, that's a pretty high number. I think it was 70-something under-20, so...
That's got to be a good sign that you're actually getting that connection from an age group point of view through.
Yeah. No, it's it gives you a really good idea. You get a pretty deep understanding of who's around, who's coming down, who wants to come down to this well, I guess when you talk about the region, Highlanders region, and then who, I guess, can maybe look to connect into our group. So
well, I guess that's a good segue. I mean, we had with the Southland eye patch on, a really strong presence in that Highlanders Under 20 team this year. I don't know, I haven't worked it out, but I'm guessing the most ever Southland players probably in that team. That's got to be beneficial in the development of some of those guys. Yeah,
I think so. It was massively, to be fair. Like we took a photo after the trial, and I think we had 16 out of 20 in our academy were playing in the trial game. Obviously, they all didn't make the next cut. I think we had 12 in the 36, and then Tane Harvey, who unfortunately got an injury in the Southland game. Would have been awesome to see him go, because I think he would have went really well. But and then we're down to 10. Yeah, we had 9. We had 9 go to the tournament, so 6 of them are back next year, which is huge. And for the boys, it's just being in the environment day in, day out, and then going away to Taupo and playing it and training and preparing at that level is hopefully set them up to come back into club and then to rep.
I suppose you say 6 back next year, but you look at Gregor Rutledge, he's got a year again. I mean, it's sort of ridiculous to think he was still going around in that tournament in 2026.
Yeah, it's hard to fathom a wee bit for how well he played this year. He looked well at home, really, which is, pretty exciting. I thought he'd go well. Didn't quite maybe think he'd go that well when he got his opportunity. He's still got a long way to go, like any 17-year-old kid, but he just the way he hooked in and had some awesome touches. 17. I think they said there was 7 under-18s playing at the tournament as well. So he was obviously one of those 7.
What sort of environment do these guys get, to progress their footy at that level?
In the Highlanders 20 space, yeah. So it's a bit of we call it a sprint really. So come together in O week. It was Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 7 a.m, 6 p.m. So and it's an O week.
Yeah.
So I guess you understand that the boys have turned up, and it's Kane likes to call it controlling the chaos. So actually had a wee document that they had to fill out, was a bit about that later, but reflection and being self-aware. But it was, you get thrown in the deep pool pretty much. You got to turn up at 7 a.m. or quarter to 7 on the Logan Park turf, clarity, piling the information into them, and then come at 6 p.m, go away to their course, and then 6 p.m, turn up and do it under a bit more duress and a bit of pace, and then rinse and repeat Tuesday, day off Wednesday, and then do it again Thursday. And then we had trial on the Friday, and then after that it was pretty much, albeit 1 or 2 tweaks, but it was pretty much rinse and repeat for 4 weeks like that, really. So it's, during the day you're having conversations, and I know, like for me I did the structured attack, which is pretty much all the line out scrum plays, all the kicking strategy, all that side of it. So I did a lot of time with the 9s and 10s, so couple of cafes in Dunedin took a bit of a hiding, to be fair, but catching up with them one-on-one, getting to know them as well, that was the biggest piece, especially the ones that didn't know. So. And
what comes now for the group? Do they just go out into those academy structures? Or?
Yeah. So it's a bit of a blend really. So I guess the guys at the pointy end will hopefully get their name on the New Zealand Under 20 squad list. So they got that rugby championship, which is pretty exciting and much needed, to be fair, to compete with those Six Nations teams. So that get named, I think, this Friday or maybe next Monday. So hopefully we should have a small number in that. Southland wise, I guess we'll find out. And then for the other guys, back into the guys in academies, because not all those guys are in academies. So the guys will go back into academies, Targo and Southland, and then the rest of them will just get stuck into their club footy, really.
Yeah.
And then for the boys that are under 19, obviously build towards the under 19 provincial stuff, which far out. She's going to be, the 4 teams this year is going to be as good as it's ever been, I reckon. So, and then the older boys, the under 20 boys will, I guess there'll be a blend of guys playing Bs, guys playing maybe Sassenachs or Colts, and guys playing NPC. So, yeah.
So no overnight success stories when you talk about building depth, right? That takes time, no doubt. So aside from giving you the complete patsy question here, where you can say it's all about me, in the Academy Southland program, Academy Rugby Southland Academy program, what do you put down to, in terms of that depth that you've been able to build and get a group like that, particularly from a Southland point of view right now?
Yeah, good question. I think Southland wise.
Say it's you. Go on.
No, it's definitely not me. I think their success that Southland boys have had is probably one piece of it.
Yep.
And I think the other part is probably the relationship with the Highlanders, especially in the last 18 months, is probably the other big rock. Relationship with Kane in the last 12 months around understanding the guys that are coming down, him giving us, or us being Rugby Southland, the opportunity to present and pitch to these kids and their parents about aligning with us, not Otago. So that's been massive. I look at a guy like Josh Augustine, potentially in that past, never would have had opportunity to get a guy like that on our list. So that's probably the other piece. And then probably the other piece is, like I said at the start, was just being a lot more connected and aware of who guys are that maybe want to come into the region, aren't massively on the Highlanders radar. I think of someone like Wyndham that we first fired from Hamilton Boys, just through talking to a couple of people, and then opportunity for him to jump in our academy group. So there's probably that part as well. Guys who aren't at the, I guess you'd call the top end in the Highlanders high performance, but are good enough to be, I guess, in an academy and under 19 provincial, Highlanders under 20, and then hopefully they might kick on a year or two later. So.
Because you just mentioned Josh Augustine, and I hadn't seen him play at all that under-20s tournament. Yeah. And he obviously come out of Napier Boys, and for us, obviously choosing Southland was great. Can you tell us a bit about him? It looks like he's got a bit about him.
Yeah, if you talk to him, you probably thought, man, he is from Southland. But he loves tractors, pretty quiet. So his parents, his family's off of Dairy Farm in Dannyvirk, so awesome parents, awesome family. His family was actually at the tournament. But yeah, he really wanted to come down. He actually had been talked to from a couple of the other super teams as well. But he chose the Highlanders, and then sort of, I guess, when it came to the provincial stuff, we sort of showed him around the new mall out there and the stadium, and like we did with all of them. But they're pretty impressed. And then I guess where we saw, I guess our biggest selling point is, it's not about nothing to do with the financial part. It's just the opportunity. Because I think the financial part at provincial level is really, academy space, it's really all the same now. There's not really any differences in that regard. It's more around, well, if you go and nail it, your opportunity to play NPC is potentially come earlier, and especially him being an outside back. For whatever reason, we don't have a truckload of them, so that was a big selling point, and he probably just seemed a good fit around off the farm, loves that smaller sort of place. Quiet fella, but man, yeah, he can play. And it was funny because he'd never done any gym work or any strength and conditioning really. Napier Boys don't do any of that. So literally, he turned up January 7th with the Highlanders high performance, and his training age was 0. So he's come a long way in a short time. But obviously, he can play rugby quite well. So.
It's a beautiful Southland anniversary day outside as we speak. I'm just wondering whether, when you bring these guys down and show them around, do you have we look at the forecast to make sure you pick your right day?
Yeah, I probably need to do that this year, to be fair. But it was funny, last year Tane Harvey actually came down, I don't know if you guys remember, the day Stags played Northland. That was a lovely grey, wet day, and it was probably one of the most exciting games of rugby you'd ever see. So sat in the grandstand with him and his dad and Kane and thought, oh man, this is
a tough
great
sell.
This is the last we see of him.
Yeah, so I obviously sold him. So
well, Yeah, I was going to say, because we've joked about this before, that half your job is obviously the coaching sort of side of it, but you're almost a salesman for some of these guys, isn't it? And trying to pitch the Southland dream that sort of these guys that want to, when they've got other provinces lining up as well. You've obviously done a fairly good job of that, but it's probably it's not an easy task, and I guess a bit of work goes into to putting that pitch together.
Yeah, it was something thought about. I guess learned a lot off Kane. I guess it was my first year doing it last year, and I guess I've sort of learned massively off Kane around. He does it with the Highlanders, and sat in on some Zooms with him from a Highlanders point of view. So I'd probably give Kane a lot of credit. I just took a lot of notes and the way he sort of went about things. But for us was, I guess, around tying in around the opportunity part, and then tying into what that looks like, trying to bring a bit of vision, we have a wee thing around growing the antlers, sharpening the antlers, and then the raw. So pitch that a wee bit to the boys on their families, because it's mum and dad's the important part as well, I think, especially those boys coming out of school. You're not just selling them, like they're going home, and mum and dad are probably, in some cases have a fair bit of say. So I guess, and also just the connection and just spinning the yarn really, and not going straight to the business part, just getting to know them and being curious and asking questions and seeing what they enjoy and what they don't enjoy. And
because I think the thing you forget, and I don't say this in a derogatory sense, is that they're kids, right? I mean, they're just young fellas, and if we roll the clock back to when we were that age, some of us, that's a bit further in the rearview mirror than yours is, Scotty, but you've got to take that into consideration. And so the other point that we always think about, and I suppose I use this in a basketball context, so we should compare notes here, mate, about recruiting and bringing players down. But one of the good things here, and I'm guessing it's the same, is that there aren't too many distractions, right? You can get in, you can hone your craft. You talk about sharpening the antlers, and you can get in and obviously with the quality of facility that we've actually got, as well too, which I think is a real strategic advantage. And that closeness from a community point of view, you've got the chance to really develop from a player point of view by just focusing on that, right?
Yeah, no, it's huge. Especially when the boys that go to university around Southland to come down. And one thing I tried to pitch to the boys was that you feel like you should feel like you come down as a pack. So like if it's not just the 18-year-olds, it's you're coming back down with the Jack Taylors or the Sean Withies and the Hayden Michaels. So there's actually almost trying to create an identity. We might take over Dunedin, but a big group that's actually coming back down and connecting in for the NPC. So you're actually, even though you're in Dunedin playing club footy or Highlanders 20s, there's actually a group of you there, and you're connecting in through different points. We've got a couple of things that we've started up this year to help with that, but I think that's the big piece as well, that they come down. Well, that was a selling point, that they're not just coming down as Tane or as Josh, feeling really isolated, don't know anyone. Actually, you've spent 6 months up there, like in Tane and Josh's case. They done the whole pre-season with the Highlanders, like they had Tavita, they were living in the Polytech Hall with Tavita Latu, or Blair Rye, or all of a sudden they know those boys, where they didn't, so they come down in August, they actually feel pretty comfortable. They know Jack Taylor, they know, Hayden, Byron Smith's been up there, so there's that piece is really important, making them comfortable as well.
Because you've put it, am I right in saying, and I don't want to break any trade secrets here, but you put quite a bit of work in terms of almost creating a Dunedin base from a Southland point of view, right? Yeah. So maybe talk us through, that side of things.
Still a work in progress, to be fair. But we last year was a bit of a trial. So I guess back to when Crazy was running it, he first got that off the ground with, I think it was Jack and Liam McIntosh and Jack Taylor. Jack obviously went straight to the Highlanders, but last year we had 5 of them up there. We trialled a couple of things, like they had gym at the Polytech. We didn't have a trainer last year, so the boys would do their gym at the Polytech program from down here with Brooke and Ewan, and then they sort of just connect in with their clubs, and we did some virtual things and different bits. But this year was sort of, most of them were in that Highlanders 20s, but I guess moving into this club block, which is called Block 2, is we're going to have Wednesday night rugby sessions. So I'll go up probably 2-3 weekly on a Wednesday night, but I've got a couple of awesome people up there that are going to help drive the rugby sessions as well. And then we've managed to get, it was actually through Carl McDonald, Adam Keane. So Adam Keane is a S&C currently with the Blue Revs in Japan, but pretty much based in Dunedin. Anyway, Macca put me onto him and Zoomed and talked, and so he's just started 2 weeks ago, but he's just taking the boys through the S&C. Actually, Macca's daughter Ruby, who's studying up there, has come on as a bit of an intern, so we've hit a bit of a jackpot there with Adam around the level that he is at with his, I guess, S&C coaching. The boys have got access to him in blocks across the year
That's
when he's
awesome.
on Japan, so that's been massive.
This is the McDonald physio tree. It's
Yeah, so we've really tapped into that
Good.
that McDonald networking. So
Yeah.
between Carl and then obviously we have Ruby, who's she's going to obviously jump in with Adam and learn a lot. And then when he
awesome.
goes away for periods in Japan, she'll be able to take a wee bit of a lead and grow herself. Because I guess the other thing is it's about growing other people as well outside of just the players. So Ruby and then Monty Mitchell, who actually used to play down here, Southland boys and Maris, he's actually coaching the Kaikorai Prem Colts, so he's going to help out with some skill work with the boys. So Kaikorai, I guess, in Dunedin, the top 2 Colts teams in Dunedin, so he's pretty well connected. Also now runs all the recruitment for Kaik, so shameless plug for Kaikorai, but not that I'm aligned to that club. But so getting people like that in that have a motivation. Adam's from Southland as well originally, so they actually have an interest in it. Like there's a desire to actually make it better because they're Southlanders as well. So I think that's important.
It obviously is one of the big plus sides in growing our development, isn't it? Because the days of us just guys going to uni and wishing them goodbye and hoping they might come back one day in the future is a pretty tall order if we continue to go down that track, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. And everyone's got their view on it, but I think we're also trying to forecast ahead of maybe what might happen in the future. And I know there's a lot of it's in the media at the moment, a lot around future of Pathway and NPC and Super Rugby. And I know New Zealand Rugby have had some discussions last year about I guess you'd call it the academy space and who maybe will run that in time. So almost, I guess, not trying to be ahead of the game, but trying to, I guess, lining it up a wee bit with guys in Dunedin. I think, in 3-5 years could have a lot more payoff for us if things went down a bit more of that super-led academy space in conjunction with the PUs, which, to be fair, we're already doing pretty well now in the last 12 months. Crusaders obviously already run that sort of model with Tasman and Canterbury. Crusaders pretty much, I guess, run that academy space in conjunction with the PUs being Tasman. So, I think that's where it's going to go naturally. But as for us as group up there, boys want to go to university. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing, that they have something behind them, because they could sit here and play footy and that at 18, but if they're not into the trades or not into something that's available here, they're really just sitting here twiddling their thumbs a wee bit and playing footy. So got to give them the best opportunity to do that. Like I look at Gregor, he's doing health science this year, which is pretty full on.
It's reasonably full on.
They're full on for a young year 13, and then obviously the footy side, and he's tied in with the Highlanders a wee bit now, which is awesome. So that's the other piece. We got some of those boys are already in doing they do their S&C, like Tane, Josh, Gregor, they do the S&C nutrition with the Highlanders, and then we sort of now that we're in club season, the rest of it goes over to us. So
that seems to be, it's come up all the time, and you mentioned it before, mate, in terms of that Highlanders relationship.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the secret piece of the puzzle, right? That everything else has kind of fallen from, and I know that's relationships, obviously, and it's now obviously the great work you're doing is that Southland's actually in the conversation, which potentially we weren't before too. So, tell us about that as a focus and how that's because that's a fundamental change, really, from if we would bemoan the fact that, the Highlanders probably didn't, previously didn't look south of the Clutha. What's your sort of take there in terms of how quickly that's turned around?
Dale used to have, pull his hair out a wee bit, as I know, wrote about a lot, Saves, but I'm not sure I'd put it down to one certain thing. I think Kane Jury, well, I guess for me, been a massive part of that. I guess the connection piece, and whether they've grown their trust in us or whether we've, it's gone both ways possibly. I'm not sure, but I think that they've been a lot more forward towards us around.
Well, you've got to earn that, to be fair, haven't you? You're not going to get that by default.
Yeah, and I know Panel had when he came on board last year, he talked to Roger and that around it, and that was a big piece that we've got to earn almost earn the trust, to be fair, that if they're more than just one or two guys. If we're going to have 9, 10 plus guys linked in, then we've got to I guess show that we're doing what we need to do in terms of developing them when they come down for NPC or if it's in the academy space or whatever. So I think we're starting to do that. We've still obviously got a long way to go, but I think you're starting to show that. And like Sean coming home this year, which will be massive. And
I wanted to talk about that and get into that one too, because I mean we talk about the depth, which is great, but then you get the Withy signing. You know, I mean, important at that high level to get someone obviously who was always one that kind of got away for a couple of years to be able to bring him back. How important is that in the mix in terms of that credibility as well too at that sort of high level?
Yeah, I think the credibility is the biggest bit. It's, he's obviously captain the Highlanders. He's senior player now, and I think the other thing with Sean is he's still climbing. Like some of the other guys that have maybe come in have maybe been at the top of the hill of their super career, I guess you'd say. So, like for him to come in, still got a way to go for himself, especially around his super and higher honours. To come in and lead, it's the symbolism of he's a Southland guy, coming back, showing some of the other guys there that I can play for Southland and start for the Highlanders every week and knock on whether it's an All Black 15 door or whatever, or hopefully All Blacks at one point for him. But that's that's the biggest bit, in showing those young guys that you can go up the road still. If you do university or you're with the Highlanders, you can still be connected to us straight away. And hopefully with the boys going, like the Gregors and those boys going up there, shows young lads as well. And I get it's a balance, because we also want to make sure that we've got guys down here.
Yep.
But I think that big bit of that is also determined by what the individual wants to do. Because like I said before, if they want to do health soil, they want to do surveying, like whatever it is, like they need the opportunity to do that, because that's first and foremost before their rugby. I guess at the moment we've got a pretty good split where the boys that want to do trades and that are down here, because there's apprenticeships and jobs, and then the boys that want to do the university are up the road. So I think that's just going to become more and more defined. But yeah, for Withy, that's it's massive, to be fair, and him, I guess the leadership he'll bring, the knowledge, and hopefully it may, because I think if you looked at the Stags, you'd probably say loose forward-wise they're pretty good last year. So you could sit there and probably argue to some degree that maybe he wasn't required from a loose forward point of view, but
It's bigger sign.
I was playing chess, not checkers. So
Well, see, if you not averse to a bit of hyperbole at times, but didn't you call it the most important signing by Rugby Southland, and was it in history or something?
I think I did, and you're right. I'm not short of a bit of, but no, as you said, just the statement it made, I guess, around that actually here's a guy that's an established player that sees that he can come back and play for the Stags, and the message that sends to the young guys, and probably a lot of that work was already being done, but it is a bit of a stake in the ground, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the perception. I'm always a big believer that the perception is often greater than the reality.
Totally.
And if the perception becomes that, I even think about just the conversations, or small conversations people would had with me around, like, for example, Tane Harvey. Like, how'd you get Tane? How'd you, all of a sudden it's gone from Southland getting no-1, Southland just sitting at the bottom like that, is now, other PUs and who are asking, like actually being talked about, and whether that's, good or bad or whatever, like we're actually now, people actually going, sitting up and going, Southland have actually got this guy and that guy, and they've recruited these guys, and there's some credibility there. Now it's about doing it on the field, really.
I guess you take it one step further, and if a Tane Harvey or a Josh Augustine comes out and really cracks it with Southland, it sends another message, doesn't it, that you can actually, as a young guy. But I mean, looking at it from the Highlanders' perspective, it makes sense that they get some of these, or that hopefully some of these guys align with Southland, because it's no good Otago stacking them all up and having 5 midfielders and one guy and Tane Harvey not getting a look in at all, is it?
And I know that they get that. I've said in meetings last year, and they've been driving that as well, that messaging. Ultimately, I guess up to the player where they want to go, but we've got to show them that there's, like I said before, there's opportunity, genuine opportunity, and showing them the why they should pull on a Stags jersey. If they're a Southlander, obviously makes it a bit easier, but if they're not a Southlander, then got to be really clear around, I guess, why they should pull that maroon jersey on.
Because that's the next phase, right? Is it recruitment's, look, you've got that great guns, obviously, and that's good. But then there comes the retention element as well, right? So, and we know how the game works generally. Some of the other provincial unions, come a knocking and cherry picking and that type of thing. So what sort of strategies, and I know this is kind of second phase, but what kind of strategies do you proactively put in place there to try and, retain this great talent that you've been able to now recruit, right?
Get them to sign real early.
Yeah.
Lock
them in long term.
Yeah. 3's the max, but and try and do that. No, I think you just got to show them, I guess, got to show them a really good, or give them a really good experience. So, like, I think Tane and Josh this year, so for me, it'll be not even worry about the rugby, because the rugby will take care of itself. So it'll be like, where are they staying? Are they looked after? Is the place where they're staying going to be warm? Is the the environment that they're in every day? So when they ring mum and dad and say, "Oh yeah, I'm having a great time," versus I'm staying in this place, it's freezing. I think that's the biggest bit of feeling like they're, I guess, looked after, but also pushed and challenged at the same time. So that, I know a lot of that stuff I don't feel costs any money. So that's going to be my, I guess, biggest piece this year. The rugby stuff will take care of itself. Like, they go and train, and like those guys will go and train with the Stags and potentially won't play, but it's getting all the other bits right, making sure that they're feeling comfortable, feeling in a good space week to week, and that's where like Carly and Jason McKenzie and obviously Amy with the nutrition, that's where they come in as well to help, I guess, back up what we're trying to put together. So
the romantic in me, Scotty, would hope that things like Stag Day, that those sorts of things must help when you're talking to these guys.
Yeah, well, hopefully. I don't know whether that worked for those guys, but like, I think last year on the video, I had a wee video clip of I think it was 2020 and then 21, just the crowd and that. And for obviously the non-Southland or Otago boys, it was, well, where do you think the game is? And one of them wasn't really sure, I think, from memory. Well, that's actually an Otago home game. So just trying to, show them that a wee bit as well. And the Stag Days are pretty big piece. And then like those boys will get to see it live, I guess, this year. And actually lined up an under-19 game, not quite allowed to get a curtain raiser, but next best thing, hopefully we'll have it next door at Marist Collegiate as a bit of a warm-up, so it'll be tying quite well to the day, I think. Otago Colts playing under-19 Southland, so
nice.
But little things like that definitely goes a long way. Yeah.
You touched on it before. I'm sure you've got a view on this. There are questions around the sustainability or otherwise of the NPC and how rugby in New Zealand sort of fits together. I guess one of the things they're talking about is that replication and what the pathway is. Like, what's your view of what this, where we need to be?
That's a big question, mate. How long have we got? No, I think, there's got to be change in some form. Like, anyone who can sit back and look at it objectively, like, we got 14 semi-pro teams, 5 professional teams who are bleeding money as well. It's small place. When you look at overseas, like the money and the populations that they have, it's like, well, how can we actually sustain this? But then the other piece as well, the NPC has to stay in some form, because it's the whole, I guess, point of difference for New Zealand rugby. It's that middle bracket between club and professional. So, I think the academy piece lining up with the super clubs leading it makes sense. Like, I think we're already tracking that way a bit. I think the piece for the provinces, we talked before, Sav's about like a guy like, I don't know, Hugh and Sharp, like going off tangent a wee bit, but I think the PU's place a bit more as those later developers. I guess what we're running down here now is like, Tinny and Panel running the high performance group, like, that's I think for you guys who are maybe in that 21 to 25, 26 bracket, that they might not have made any rep or age grade under 20 teams, but they get to 22, 23, they've actually got the ability to play at a higher level, but maybe just haven't had opportunity or haven't grown to their body. So I think I reckon that's probably the biggest piece where everyone, I reckon, missing a wee trick at the moment. I know Panel and I have talked about it quite a lot. Like, I reckon there'd be a lot of guys who go through academies, especially in the bigger unions, that probably are good enough to play and are good buggers, but maybe just because they're in a big union, they get shunted out when they're 20, 21 and effectively get told without getting told that they can't make it or that they're done, and they're 20, 21 years old. Like we were talking about, like Billy Andrew is a perfect example. Blues, like obviously a tough night for Blues the other night, but Billy played really well. Like he played really well. He's year 3 in the academy, and I think, well, Billy's only 20 in 2 years. In 2 more years, he's only 22. And it's like, well, after this year, we're just gonna say, bye Billy, go and play for Blues, or like in 2 years' time, is Billy with 2 more years of development could be then ready to play for the Stags at 22, just because he's not Jack Taylor, like. At 20, so we line we tried to use with the young boys was, well, no, your development isn't linear. Like, everyone, you look at the Jacks and those guys who it looks easy because they come out of school, they make under 20s, they make New Zealand 20s, they play for the Stags second year out of school, and they maybe think that that's got to be them. So I reckon, well, circling back, is that piece for the provinces, I think, is the biggest piece, and I think the super clubs maybe taking care of their 18 to 20 talent, and knowing that not all those guys are going to go and be able to play for the Highlanders, but some of those guys might take 22, 23, then they can go and nail it. They might grow up a wee bit, might get out of a certain environment, might be in a flat where they're with people who have a good time Monday to Friday as well. So, you just don't know with people's circumstance. I think that's probably the biggest thing I've learnt. Like, I look at Hunter Burgess, another example. Like, he's 19 years old. It feels like he's been out of school for years, but in 2 years' time, you go, well, he's only 21.
Yeah.
So, like, we go, oh, you're done in the academy. You're done in the academy. Like, and it's trying to show them to have patience as well, because the world we live in now is people aren't very patient, are they? Everything want to be instant. So, and that's the biggest, I think, conversations I'll be having this year with, and hopefully it does happen for this year, those guys. But if it didn't, then you're trying to show them, which is easier said than done, because, they want it now, and again, they see the other guys. But
well, I guess that, like you said, also I suppose positions can be quite different, isn't it? Like, I mean, Jack Taylor is an exception, I suppose, as a hooker, but front rowers, locks with Hunter Burgess. I mean, Liam McIntosh is coming on obviously very well. Yeah. But props is a tough game, isn't it?
And I look at Liam, like, again, he was young to leave school, but like Gregor, like Liam's 20 years old. Like, not even 20 yet. He's still 19. He's third year out of school, like, and he's playing prop, probably the toughest. Yeah. Tighty prop, the most challenging position on the field. So, and we're next year we're going, well, he's got to make it next year. Well, ideally he does, but if he doesn't, well, geez, again, 2 years' time, he's 22 years old. Like, just got to be patient with some of these guys, and you got to play the long game, I think, with some of them. But again, it's the challenge of them being patient as well, understanding that your opportunity will come if you keep being consistent and nailing all your habits. But
because you referenced before at an international level, and I sort of feel like under 20s we've probably underperformed those Six Nations at World Champs, those World Cups. We've struggled there, haven't we, the last few years? Yeah,
big time. Well, you've only got to watch. I don't know if you've seen the Six Nations under 20s on TV. I was watching, we're in Taupo, England were playing France.
I saw a bit of that game actually at an airport coming home. I was going, is this actually under 20s?
Yeah, crazy. Like 20, I think it was 33,000 people there. And you're sitting watching that, and you go, well, our guys are playing in Taupo. Good tournament, but it's just chalk and cheese, really. Yeah. And like, they've been in camp. I know James Wilson, who went away, he did some stuff over in the UK in February, and that he called in, I think, to see them for a week. And they'd been they're already been in camp for 3 months together. The English team, connected, like full-time training. It's and we're asking our guys to go in their, I guess, PU academy, full-time job for the guys who aren't studying, and then go and put a team together and play. Those France and England's. France had Tuolangi playing, who's already played international rugby. It's a hard ask. It's not an excuse, but it's just the reality of the situation, I guess, like the challenge for New Zealand rugby. And I think that rugby championship will help. It's not the magic bullet, but it definitely will help. So it'll be John O'Gibbs is coaching this year. Be a good challenge for him. And then I look at this year's group, like they got 3 guys who are all good enough to play or be starting backs probably, are in the New Zealand Sevens team, potentially for the Olympics. So if they end up being selected, then there's 3 quality backs. One of them actually scored a hat-trick against the Stags last year, Xavier Harris, the winger. And then you got Peyton Spencer and Cody Vi, who are all in New Zealand Sevens, who are under 20. So, yeah, it's a challenge. I don't know what the answer is, but
Well, you've given a really interesting conversation, right? But there's a lot going on there, and I think that's some of it, right? Small market New Zealand is, to be fair, by comparison, both financially and also from a population point of view. We're trying to do all of that. And then by comparison, you have a look at the Six Nations teams, or the home unions, and you go, how do you compete with that? Better funded, can resource that, can bring guys together for 3 months and put them together. You just can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is just rely on raw talent, get out there and play, and often that's worked for us in the past. But now that the floor's lifted, across all of those international unions, you can't compete.
Yeah, and I think
struggle to compete.
Where it comes back to that super, I guess they're talking about the super-led model for the academy space. And they have a program called the NDC program, so it's National Development Contract. So every year I think there's 25, they've tweaked it a bit the last 3 years, but it's about 25 guys get a NDC, which means they get full-time pre-season with the super teams, and then they get from pretty much the end of pre-season until the end of super, they get X amount of days per week depending on what they're studying or working. So I guess that they've sort of highlighted the guys that have come through that as being pretty successful. So I guess their thing is, well, if they can grow that to some degree, then that might help it. That's going to help a bit, I think, which I would probably agree with that. But it's just how you, I guess, go about that and how many you can have in there. And then you look at the Highlanders, like obviously talk about resource, and compare the Highlanders to the Blues or the Chiefs is a big jump. So, and that's just in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So
I was just thinking, mate, for listeners to the pod who